It's my great pleasure to introduce our next keynote. And this is Kono-san, who's a senior advisor and member of the Global Advisory Board of MUFG. He used to also be the Deputy Secretary General of the OECD from August 2017 to October 2021. And he used to be the Vice Minister for the JFSA, in which I had met him numerous times, including through the GFMA and SIFMA, AFME, and SIFMA. So very, very happy to have you here, Kono-san. Thank you very much for taking the time today. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Mark, for your very kind introduction and a very warm hello and welcome to this dialogue. And this is really my great pleasure to join you because this has really been a fascinating discussion. And I would really like to thank ASIFMA and Afore Consulting for organizing this timely event, and also, of course, for inviting me to speak. Well, it is truly unfortunate that the continuing war in Ukraine has prompted a partial ring fencing of global financial markets and payment networks at an unprecedented speed and scale. And to put an end to this war that is causing terrible and unnecessary human suffering, I want to add my voice to the numerous calls for peace and stability in Europe and elsewhere. But I must say, I cannot subscribe to a recently expressed view that this is the beginning of a decoupling of financial markets and deglobalization, and that this will accelerate because of geopolitical conflicts, and that market fragmentation is inevitable going forward. Well, in a way, if we all wanted such fragmentation to happen, it will happen as a self-fulfilling prophecy. But I would like to be in the camp that asserts that it can be avoided and it must be avoided if we make efforts to save what we may broadly call as multilateralism. And I would say that fragmentation is in the interest of no one in this interconnected world, particularly in financial markets. For businesses as well as nations, multilateralism is what helped countries grow out of poverty and significantly raised living standards around the world. In this vein, the two major economic regions, the EU and Asia, have a common interest in working together to avoid market fragmentation through close dialogue and establishing common frameworks and standards, and through mutual trust and recognition. Dialogue is a necessary first element of our efforts to build trust and confidence in each other. So today's dialogue is really another important step to build this trust and confidence through cooperative endeavors between EU and Asia. In sustainable finance, indeed, Asia and EU have been the front runners in developing green taxonomies as well as other tools to promote this. And we heard some important and stimulating discussions over how to work towards common and consistent interoperable taxonomies and take it to the global level. And in working towards our Paris goals, this is a crucial element, and every stakeholder needs to play his or her role. In digitalization, we heard concerns about regulatory divergence and fragmentation, some gaps being found, but we also found some good prospects of global consistency being worked on in various forums going forward. And sustainability and digital transformation are indeed the two drivers of a phenomenal shift occurring in global economies and societies, along with demographic changes. And we also need to remind ourselves how interconnected the world has become through information technologies and blockchain. But then we should not be talking just about the risks involved. Certainly the risks are high, but how we can grasp the opportunities that sustainability and digitalization would bring is equally important and will be the key to our success. The EU and Asia could work together in this area by facilitating and enhancing innovation and create an open and competitive market for new technologies. By way of example, Tokyo is now developing the TGFI, the Tokyo Green Finance Initiative, to create a green finance ecosystem for investors and businesses from around the world. And a crucial element of this initiative is to provide support to foreign firms obtaining the necessary licenses and reducing their costs. And I'm sure that other financial centers in the region are gearing up with similar initiatives. All this is very positive. Another important question is how we can build a whole of economy and whole of society approach to deal with those issues stemming from the quest for sustainability and digitalization. How we can make the best use of financial markets and services in this transformation is a challenge of the day. When we talk about global consistency, we need to adopt a pragmatic approach. We need to make use of such concepts as proportionality and flexibility and outcomes-based equivalence. This is because we cannot have a one-size-fits-all solution to many of the issues involved in a diverse region like Asia. And this has been repeatedly mentioned in the discussions we just heard. And outcomes-based equivalence decisions can bridge different regulatory regimes, allowing interoperability, even when the rules are not exactly the same. And this is a perfect example of what I call a pragmatic approach. And I would even say that this is the only realistic approach at hand. For example, green or sustainable taxonomies may be useful tools, but they are only a means to an end. And finance can help the transition to a low carbon, just economy and society, and taxonomies can help. But to be useful, they have to be adaptable to different circumstances in different economies and societies. Please don't misunderstand that I'm not saying that we should compromise on such issues as human rights. We need to uphold common values, but how to hardwire those values into rules can differ across jurisdictions. And implementation may take longer in some jurisdictions than others. So a principles-based and staged approach may help in developing a common instrument for very diverse regions around the world, including Asia and of course the EU. For the financial services sector, how finance can support the transition of the economy and society as a whole is most important and challenging, and we cannot satisfy ourselves by cleaning up the balance sheets of financial institutions only and leave the rest to others. Financial institutions need to support the just transition of their clients, and this needs to be done in a consistent manner with national net zero or decarbonization strategies. By sharing ideas and working on convergence of approaches, we will progressively harmonize our strategies towards decarbonization and digitalization. So what is the role of the private sector in all this? As practitioners, financial services providers can provide regulators with frontline knowledge of what works and what doesn't work in terms of decarbonization strategies in various sectors. It can help by better pricing in the financial effects of action or non-action, identify potential stranded assets, and help develop scenario analysis by their clients. And of course, we can provide data. MUFG is a member of GFANZ, the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, and the Net Zero Banking Alliance, NZBA, which aim to collectively improve our net zero strategies through mutual learning and collaboration. And we can help identify best practices and work with regulators to find the best approach in a collaborative manner. So if we believe in the power of financial markets to incentivize decarbonization and through carbon pricing to enable sustainable finance to be mainstreamed and become functional, we need better data and information. Again, this point has been repeated in the discussions. Disclosure rules, ESG ratings, data standardization, they all require some form of leadership from regulators to establish internationally consistent and comparable outcomes. But we should caution against too much regulation or regulatory overkill. Inevitably, too much regulation will cause excessive costs and distortion. Competition will be discouraged and innovation stalled. So what we need is the best mix of rules and functioning markets based on transparency, integrity, and fairness. And again, this dialogue, by having a broad range of participants from the private and public sectors, has been helping find a balance of approaches and support well-informed decision-making. So to conclude, my hope is that we continue this dialogue into the future and mutually inform and influence ourselves in coping with the challenges of sustainable growth and development and digitalization. So I look forward to seeing you all again in the near future and to future events with your active participation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Kono-san. And thank you very much for your comments on deglobalization and decoupling and the fact that actually it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy if we don't actually take the time to actually push the other case. And if we don't, we could result in fragmentation, which, to your point, I mean, the two key topics that we talked about here today, sustainability and digitalization, require us to kind of work in a cooperative fashion for the sake of the planet, as well as for the sake of technological advancement. So I think those are very, very important points. And thank you again for your time today. Always a pleasure. Always very well thought out and thoughtful comments. So thank you.